Okay, so today we're going to be talking a little bit about lean bulking. So, this is a sort of term of phrase that has become a lot more popular recently. And the idea behind it is that you are going to gain a significant amount of new muscle tissue, but minimize the amount of fat tissue that you do gain whilst doing it. This is something which has been sort of sold to people as something that is, there's an easy process for it and it's clearly delineated from normal bulking or dirty bulking. And, this is something that you will be more than capable of doing. Unfortunately, this isn't really the case because of the way that we gain muscle tissue, particularly for those of you who aren't leveraging performance enhancing drugs. It is going to be incredibly hard for you to gain muscle tissue without gaining some degree of fat tissue as well. For the people that you do see being able to do this, so this sort of lean bulking process, this can largely be attributed to either genetics or the leveraging of performance enhancing drugs. Now, there is a way in which you can moderate the amount of fat tissue that you do gain whilst gaining muscle tissue. And what this does is extends your time frame out by quite a while. So as opposed to you trying to put muscle tissue on for 6 months, you'd probably be looking more like a year plus. And inside of that time frame, there's going to be some mini diets within it to help moderate that fat tissue gain. And also we want to start at a leaner starting point. So wherever you are in your current physique, in order for you to gain muscle tissue and remain as lean as possible whilst doing so, it is almost certainly the best idea to do a diet first, where you take your body fat down to much lower than it would normally be, or what you would consider walking around at. This is because it's going to buy you quite a significant buffer in regard to how much fat tissue you are then able to gain before you get uncomfortable with it and then decide to diet again. There's also some literature to suggest that it's potentially more advantageous for muscle growth to start at a leaner standpoint. Certainly from a health metric standpoint, it's better to start gaining muscle tissue from a leaner starting point. You're less likely to become insulin resistant, etc. So once you've got to this leaner starting point, you now have bought yourself double the amount of time on the way up. So when we're losing body fat, generally speaking, what I'm looking for is around 1% a week of body weight lost. And when we're gaining muscle tissue, I'm looking for roughly 0.5% of body weight gained per week after the first week. In the initial week, you're going to gain a little bit of water. Depending on how big you are is going to depend on how big this water fluctuation is. But from there on out, we are looking for that 0.5% a week or every 10-day mark. Now, as you can see from those two figures, when you're losing weight, the speed you're going at is twice the rate at which you will gain it. So say if you do an 8-week diet from where you're already relatively lean and you're taking it below that, you've then bought yourself 16 weeks worth of muscle tissue gain before you approach the body fat you were initially comfortable at. From there, I would suggest keep the bulk going for as long as you can before you get to a sort of uncomfortable amount of body fat. As I was saying before, if you aren't leveraging performance enhancing drugs, you're going to have to accept a much higher degree of fat tissue gained in order to gain a substantial amount of muscle tissue. Now, this doesn't mean that we want to have our stomach hanging over our shorts and into our knees, but it does mean you are going to have to accept being a little bit softer, potentially not having abs year round in order to make that actual difference. Once you have got to the point where you are approaching that sort of uncomfortable level of body fat percentage, I would then suggest a relatively short and sharp diet in that point. We'd be looking at sort of 4 to 6 weeks in there, getting a little bit more aggressive with how much weight we're losing within that time, and then going immediately back to putting on weight after that again. So you've peeled your body fat percentage down. Again, say for these mini cuts in the middle of a bulk, we're looking at more like 1.5%. body weight lost per week, and then you've bought yourself another 3x that on the way up. So say if you do a 6-week mini diet, you've then bought yourself another 18 weeks worth of muscle tissue gaining before you then have got that body fat that you initially lost during the mini cut. After repeating this cycle several times over the course of, say, a year and a half, you will then have gained a relatively substantial amount of muscle tissue whilst moderating your body fat as much as you can. Off the back of that, you're still probably going to need to diet again, but the diet you're going to have to do on the back end is going to be less than what it had have been if you had gone, full dirty bulk, eating Domino's pizza for each meal and a gallon of milk per day.